What we call evil often stems from the lens through which we perceive others. The concept of an evil woman is no exception. It is both a reflection of collective fears and an echo of individual experiences. To brand someone as evil, we must first examine the standards by which we judge. Is this evilness innate, or does it arise from a misunderstanding of motives, actions, and context? To truly understand the idea, we must navigate the complexities of perception itself. Perception is not a neutral process. It is shaped by our past experiences, biases, and the stories we've been told. From myths and folklore to modern media, the archetype of the evil woman has long captivated the human imagination. She is the temptress, the deceiver, the harbinger of chaos. But does she exist as an objective reality, or is she a construct born of cultural fears and societal constraints? What we perceive as evil in one context might simply be survival in another. Consider the way emotions influence how we see others. Anger, betrayal, or jealousy can easily transform someone's actions into a narrative of malevolence. A woman who asserts herself might be seen as domineering, one who chooses autonomy as cold or heartless. These judgments arise not from her essence, but from our discomfort with what she represents. Perhaps she challenges norms, defies expectations, or threatens stability in a way we are not ready to confront. In doing so, she becomes a mirror, reflecting our insecurities and fears rather than her true self. It is also worth noting that perception can be manipulated. Charisma, charm, and even beauty can veil darker motives, while clumsier attempts at goodness might be dismissed as insincere or manipulative. The human mind, eager to categorize and simplify, often struggles to reconcile complexity. A woman who exhibits traits we admire, intelligence, strength, ambition, might be labeled as evil if these qualities are wielded in ways that defy conventional morality. Yet is she truly evil, or is she simply a force we do not yet understand? Furthermore, our definitions of good and evil are not fixed. They shift with time, culture, and circumstance. What was once deemed unacceptable behavior in women asserting independence, refusing traditional roles, is now celebrated as empowerment. And yet, those who navigate this empowerment carelessly or selfishly may still be accused of embodying some form of evil. This duality highlights the fragile line between perception and reality. The world is not divided into purely good or purely evil individuals. Every person carries within them the capacity for both. What we perceive in others often depends on what we choose to focus on. A woman who acts with calculated precision might be seen as ruthless, yet her actions might serve a higher purpose we cannot immediately discern. Conversely, a woman who appears kind might harbor intentions that are not so altruistic. It is our responsibility to look beyond surface behaviors and seek the motivations that drive them. When we consider the duality of perception, we are reminded that evilness may not always lie in a person's essence, but in how they are understood or misunderstood. Before casting judgment, we must question the lens through which we view the world. Are we seeing her as she truly is, or are we projecting our fears, biases, and cultural conditioning onto her? To grapple with these questions is to approach the truth of what we call evil. In the end, the duality of perception teaches us humility. It reminds us that what we see in others is often a reflection of ourselves, our culture, and our fears. The evil woman may exist, but she is not an immutable force of nature. She is a mosaic of choices, contexts, and stories, some hers and some ours. Only by acknowledging the complexities of perception can we begin to approach her with clarity, fairness, and understanding. Manipulation often hides behind the facade of charm, making it one of the most insidious and dangerous forms of deceit. At first glance, charm appears harmless, even delightful, drawing people in with its allure. But when charm is used as a tool for manipulation, it becomes a weapon, a subtle yet potent force capable of bending the will of others without them realizing it. This veiled manipulation can leave lasting scars as it erodes trust and distorts relationships, often before the true motives are revealed. Charm is, by its nature, disarming. It creates an atmosphere of ease, often making the charmer appear trustworthy, kind, or likable. A charming person knows how to read their audience, tailoring their words, actions, and demeanor to make others feel seen and valued. But when charm is a mask for manipulation, This attentiveness is not genuine, it is calculated. The manipulator is not interested in connection for its own sake. Their goal is to gain power, control, or advantage. Every compliment, smile, or act of kindness is not a gift freely given, but a tool designed to serve their hidden agenda. The danger of manipulation veiled as charm lies in its subtlety. Unlike overt aggression or direct deceit, this type of manipulation feels like warmth, like something good. The manipulator may shower you with attention, build you up with praise, or create a sense of shared intimacy. Over time, this charm can create dependency as the manipulated person begins to seek the approval and affection of the manipulator. But this dependency is not rooted in mutual respect, it is a form of control. The manipulator knows that by making you feel good about yourself in their presence, they can shape your actions and thoughts to suit their desires. A key tactic of manipulation is inconsistency. The charm is not constant, it is strategically applied and withdrawn. This creates confusion and insecurity in the manipulated person. One moment the manipulator may be attentive and supportive, making you feel special and valued. The next moment they may become distant, critical, or even dismissive. This erratic behavior keeps you off balance, making you strive harder to regain their favor. In this way, charm is used not to uplift but to entrap, creating a cycle of emotional dependency that is difficult to escape. Manipulators who use charm often rely on the trust and goodwill of their targets. They present themselves as allies, confidants, or protectors, positioning themselves in a way that makes questioning their intentions feel unnatural or even disloyal. This is particularly effective because humans are wired to respond positively to kindness and connection. It feels counterintuitive to suspect someone who seems to have your best interests at heart. Yet it is this very tendency to trust charm that makes manipulation so effective. Another layer of this manipulation lies in the subtle erosion of boundaries. A manipulative charmer may push the limits of your comfort or values, but they do so gradually in small steps that are easy to justify or overlook. They may ask for favors, test your loyalty, or influence your decisions, always framing these actions as mutual benefits or natural extensions of the relationship. By the time you recognize the pattern, it can feel as though you are complicit, making it harder to break free. What makes manipulation veiled as charm so devastating is the aftermath. Once the illusion is shattered and the true motives are revealed, the sense of betrayal can be profound. Trust, once given so freely, is difficult to rebuild. The manipulated person may question their own judgment, wondering how they could have been so easily deceived. This self-doubt can linger long after the manipulator is gone, creating a ripple effect that impacts future relationships and one's sense of self-worth. Understanding and recognizing this dynamic requires a keen awareness of patterns. Authentic charm is consistent, freely given, and does not demand anything in return. Manipulative charm, on the other hand, always has strings attached. It is essential to look beyond surface-level behaviors and ask deeper questions. Is this person's kindness consistent with their actions over time? Do they respect my boundaries and independence? Are their intentions aligned with my well-being, or do they seem to benefit disproportionately from our interactions? Ultimately, manipulation veiled as charm is a lesson in discernment. It challenges us to see beyond appearances and to trust our instincts when something feels off, even if it looks perfect on the surface. True charm uplifts, empowers, and fosters genuine connection. Manipulative charm, however, seeks only to control, leaving behind a trail of confusion and harm. Recognizing the difference is not only a defense against manipulation, but also a path to healthier, more authentic relationships. Control often begins with language. Words, whether spoken softly or with authority, have the power to shape realities, influence minds, and manipulate emotions. When language is used as a tool for control, it transcends mere communication and becomes an instrument of dominance. This form of control is insidious because it often masquerades as concern, reason, or guidance, leaving the one being controlled unaware of the subtle erosion of their autonomy. At its core, the language of control operates through persuasion disguised as care or logic. It might sound supportive: I only want what's best for you, or I'm saying this because I care. These words appear harmless, even loving, but their true intention is to steer the listener's choices and actions in a specific direction. The person using this language crafts their words to create doubt, dependency, or obligation. Over time, this can stifle individuality and reshape the other person's perception of what is right or necessary. A key feature of controlling language is its ability to induce guilt. Phrases like, "After all I've done for you, how could you think this way, or you wouldn't want to disappoint me?" Are not overt commands, yet they carry an implicit demand. The listener feels compelled to comply, not out of agreement, but out of fear of being seen as ungrateful, selfish, or unworthy. This tactic is effective because guilt is a powerful emotion that often overrides logic and self-interest, making the controlled individual question their own instincts and desires. Another subtle mechanism is the use of conditional approval. Statements such as, "I'm proud of you when you listen to me," or "You're only this successful because I've guided you," create a dynamic where the person being controlled associates their value with the controller's validation. Approval becomes a currency, something to be earned by adhering to the expectations set by the one wielding control. This dynamic fosters dependency, as the controlled person begins to prioritize the controller's opinions and desires over their own. The language of control often involves reframing situations to shift blame or justify actions. A controller might say, "If you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have reacted this way, or you're making me do this because of your behavior." These statements deflect accountability and place the responsibility for the controller's actions onto the other person. This tactic not only absolves the controller of guilt, but also creates confusion and self-doubt in the listener. Over time, they may begin to internalize blame, believing they are the cause of the conflict or control. Another hallmark of controlling language is the erosion of self-trust. Phrases like, "You don't know what you're talking about," or "You're being irrational," are designed to undermine confidence. By consistently questioning the other person's judgment or perception, the controller creates a dynamic where the individual begins to doubt their ability to make decisions. This doubt leads to reliance on the controller, further entrenching the power imbalance. Control through language also thrives on ambiguity. Vague statements or mixed messages keep the listener in a state of uncertainty. For instance, "I might help you if you prove you deserve it," or "we'll see how things go," leave the listener unsure of where they stand. This uncertainty creates anxiety and forces the individual to focus their energy on pleasing the controller, rather than pursuing their own goals or desires. Recognizing the language of control requires a heightened awareness of patterns and intentions. One must look beyond the words themselves and examine the emotional impact they have. Do these words inspire growth, confidence, and autonomy? Or do they create doubt, fear, and dependency? Genuine communication respects boundaries, fosters understanding, and values mutual empowerment. Controlling language, however, seeks to dominate, diminish, and direct for the benefit of the controller alone. Breaking free from the language of control involves reclaiming one's voice and perspective. It requires questioning the narratives imposed by the controller and trusting in one's own instincts and judgments. It is not an easy process, as control often creates deep emotional ties that are difficult to sever. However, recognizing the patterns is the first step toward liberation. True freedom lies not in the absence of influence, but in the ability to discern and resist when language becomes a cage rather than a bridge to understanding. Emotional apathy, the inability or unwillingness to connect with the emotions of others, is a state that often goes unnoticed until its effects manifest in profound and damaging ways. Unlike overt cruelty or malice, apathy is subtle, marked by a lack of empathy, compassion, and emotional responsiveness. It is not necessarily an act of intent, but can be a form of neglect, disinterest, or even a defense mechanism. The absence of emotional engagement creates a void, leaving others feeling unseen, unheard, and unsupported. This indifference, whether deliberate or unconscious, has the power to fracture relationships, erode trust, and foster deep loneliness. At its core, emotional apathy is a withdrawal from the shared human experience of feeling. It can manifest as a dismissive attitude toward others' emotions, an inability to celebrate joys, or a lack of concern in times of distress. When someone expresses pain, an apathetic response might sound like, "It's not that big of a deal," or "Why are you so sensitive?" These statements dismiss the validity of another person's feelings, creating a sense of isolation and invalidation. Over time, this indifference chips away at the emotional fabric that binds people together, replacing connection with alienation. The roots of emotional apathy can be complex and varied. For some, it may stem from past trauma or an environment where emotions were not valued or understood. In such cases, apathy becomes a shield, a way to protect oneself from the vulnerability that comes with emotional openness. For others, it may arise from a place of entitlement or self-centeredness, where their own needs and experiences take precedence over those of others. Whatever its origin, the result is the same: a diminished capacity to engage with the feelings and experiences of those around them. One of the most destructive aspects of emotional apathy is its ability to undermine relationships. Relationships, whether romantic, familial, or platonic, thrive on emotional reciprocity, a give and take of empathy, care, and understanding. When one person in a relationship is emotionally apathetic, it creates an imbalance. The empathetic partner may feel burdened, carrying the weight of emotional labor without the support or acknowledgement they need in return. This dynamic fosters resentment, leading to a breakdown in trust and intimacy. Emotional apathy can also have far-reaching consequences beyond individual relationships. In communities or societies, widespread apathy contributes to a lack of collective responsibility and compassion. When individuals disengage emotionally from the struggles of others, they become less likely to offer support or take action. This detachment allows injustices to persist, as people rationalize their inaction by minimizing the suffering of those affected. Emotional apathy in this context is not merely a personal failing but a societal one, eroding the bonds that hold communities together. Recognizing emotional apathy requires sensitivity and self-awareness. It often disguises itself as practicality or detachment: I don't want to get involved, or it's not my problem. While there is value in maintaining emotional boundaries, apathy crosses the line when it consistently devalues or disregards the emotions of others. The difference lies in intention and impact. Healthy boundaries protect one's well-being without dismissing the feelings of others, whereas apathy disregards those feelings altogether. Breaking the cycle of emotional apathy begins with introspection. For those who struggle with apathy, it requires an honest examination of their own fears, biases, or experiences that may have led to emotional withdrawal. It involves learning to sit with discomfort and recognizing that vulnerability is not a weakness but a strength. For those affected by someone else's apathy, the journey is about setting boundaries, communicating needs, and, if necessary, stepping away from relationships that fail to provide mutual emotional support. Cultivating empathy is the antidote to emotional apathy. Empathy requires active effort, listening without judgment, validating emotions, and being present for others. It is not about solving problems or offering advice, but about creating a space where others feel understood and valued. In doing so, empathy restores the connections that apathy erodes, fostering relationships and communities built on mutual care and respect. Ultimately, emotional apathy is not an immutable state. While its effects can be deeply harmful, it is possible to overcome through awareness, effort, and a willingness to engage with the emotional world. By choosing empathy over indifference, we not only heal the wounds of apathy, but also reaffirm the shared humanity that binds us all. The art of masking truth is a practice as old as human communication itself, a skill honed by those who seek to obscure reality for personal gain, protection, or control. Unlike blatant lies, which can often be challenged and disproven, the act of masking the truth is subtler, weaving elements of fact and fiction into a tapestry that misleads without drawing attention. It is a delicate manipulation of perception, designed to obscure, distract, or redefine the narrative in ways that serve the one employing it. At its core, masking the truth relies on ambiguity. The individual may share selective pieces of information that are technically accurate but intentionally incomplete. This partial truth creates a version of reality that aligns with their goals, leaving the listener unaware of what has been omitted. For example, someone may present their actions in a positive light by excluding critical details that would cast doubt on their integrity. This strategic omission shifts the focus, creating a facade of honesty while concealing the full picture. Another key tactic in masking the truth is misdirection. By drawing attention to certain aspects of a story, the manipulator ensures that the real issue remains hidden. They may emphasize trivial details, provoke emotional responses, or even feign vulnerability to distract from the underlying facts. This approach is effective because human attention is limited once it is directed elsewhere. It is less likely to probe deeper into hidden layers of reality. Masking truth often involves a veneer of credibility. A skilled manipulator knows how to present themselves as trustworthy, leveraging charm, authority, or relatability to disarm skepticism. When someone appears genuine, we are less inclined to question their words, allowing the masked truth to go unnoticed. This reliance on perceived authenticity makes the practice particularly insidious, as it exploits the natural tendency to trust those who seem sincere. One of the most profound consequences of masking the truth is the erosion of trust. When the deception is eventually uncovered, as it often is, it leaves a lingering sense of betrayal. The affected individual may not only lose faith in the deceiver, but also in their own ability to discern truth from falsehood. This damage extends beyond the immediate relationship, coloring future interactions with suspicion and doubt. The art of masking truth is not always born of malice. It can also be a defense mechanism. People may obscure reality to protect themselves from judgment, rejection, or harm. In such cases, the intent is less about manipulation and more about self-preservation. Yet, even in these instances, the act can have unintended consequences, creating misunderstandings and conflicts that could have been avoided through honesty. To navigate a world where truths are often masked, one must develop discernment. This means asking questions, seeking context, and being attentive to inconsistencies. It requires balancing trust with healthy skepticism, understanding that what is presented at face value is not always the whole story. Truth, when masked, may be harder to find, but its discovery is essential for fostering genuine connection and understanding. Vulnerability, when authentic, is one of the most profound ways to connect with others. It opens a window into one's soul, inviting empathy, trust, and mutual understanding. But when vulnerability is weaponized, it becomes a tool for manipulation, distorting the essence of genuine openness into a calculated strategy to control or influence others. Weaponized vulnerability exploits the very emotions it seeks to evoke, using pity, guilt, or obligation to achieve selfish ends. While it may seem harmless at first glance, its long-term impact on relationships and trust can be deeply corrosive. Weaponized vulnerability often begins with an exaggerated or carefully curated display of hardship or fragility. The individual presents themselves as overwhelmed, helpless, or wronged, drawing others into their narrative. These displays are not born of a need for connection or support, but are deliberately constructed to elicit specific responses. Sympathy and care are redirected away from mutual exchange, instead flowing unilaterally toward the one wielding this vulnerability. Over time, this imbalance creates a dynamic where others feel responsible for the emotional well-being of the manipulator, often at the cost of their own needs and boundaries. A hallmark of weaponized vulnerability is its inconsistency. The person employing this tactic may oscillate between moments of strength and episodes of exaggerated weakness, depending on what serves their goals. When challenged or held accountable, they retreat into vulnerability, deflecting criticism with statements like, "I'm going through so much right now," or "You don't understand how hard this is for me." This shifts the focus away from their behavior and places the onus on others to provide reassurance or absolution. In this way, accountability is avoided, and the manipulator maintains control. Another layer of this tactic involves the use of vulnerability to foster guilt. By presenting their struggles in a way that subtly blames others, the manipulator ensures their needs take precedence. Phrases like, "If you really cared, you'd be there for me," or "I thought I could count on you, but I guess I was wrong," are designed to induce guilt and compel compliance. Over time, this creates a dynamic where those around the manipulator feel obligated to prioritize their needs, often at great personal cost. Weaponized vulnerability also exploits the inherent kindness in others. Many people are naturally inclined to help those in distress, and manipulators rely on this instinct to further their aims. By appearing fragile or broken, they bypass the defenses that might otherwise guard against manipulation. Once trust is established, they use it to extract emotional, financial, or social resources, leaving their supporters drained and disillusioned. The long-term effects of weaponized vulnerability are profound. For those on the receiving end, it creates confusion and exhaustion. They may feel trapped in a cycle of giving without receiving, unable to voice their own needs for fear of being seen as insensitive or unkind. This imbalance erodes trust and intimacy, as the manipulated person begins to recognize the exploitation but struggles to extricate themselves. For the manipulator, this behavior ultimately undermines their relationships as people grow weary of the constant demands and retreat to protect themselves.